Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking the code on a secret formula, a formula behind pretty much every epic story you've ever loved. And what's wild is, it's a blueprint you already know by heart, even if you don't realize it yet. So let me ask you something. You ever watching a movie and you get this weird sense of déjà vu? You know that feeling, where it doesn't matter who the characters are or where it's set, you just feel like, wait a minute, I've seen this story before. I mean, just think about it for a second. A farm boy blowing up a giant space station. A young lion taking back his kingdom. A spy who can't remember who he is. I mean, from sci-fi to spy thrillers, these stories on the surface couldn't be more different. But underneath it all, they're basically cut from the exact same cloth. They've got this secret narrative DNA. Yeah, that feeling, it's not an accident, not at all. It's actually a super powerful universal pattern. And the guy who first spotted it was this brilliant mythologist named Joseph Campbell. And trust me, he gave it a name that's just as epic as the stories it describes. So back in 1949, he wrote this groundbreaking book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And in it, he introduced this idea of the monomyth. His whole argument was that if you look beneath the surface of thousands of myths, legends, even religious stories from pretty much every culture on Earth, you'll find that they're all telling one fundamental story. The same story over and over and over again. And here's the gist of it, right from the man himself. A hero leaves their everyday world, goes somewhere amazing and maybe a little scary, faces down some incredible forces, wins a big victory, and comes back a changed person. That, Campbell said, is the basic skeleton of literally every great hero story. Now, Campbell's original version was pretty intense. We're talking 17 different stages. But, for people actually trying to write these stories today, it's been boiled down to something way simpler. A really clear 3-act structure that basically maps out the hero's entire transformation. And those 3 acts, they're really the pillars of the whole thing. First, you have the departure. That's when the hero leaves their normal life. Then comes the initiation. This is where they get tested, where they change. And finally, you have the return, when they come back home, but they're bringing something new with them, some kind of reward or wisdom. All right, so let's break that down. Act 1, the departure. It all kicks off with what's called the call to adventure, right? Our hero is just living their normal, maybe kind of boring life. And then, bam, something or someone shows up to completely shake things up. It's that invitation to step into the great unknown. Like Gandalf knocking on Frodo's door in the Shire. That's the call. Okay, then we hit the initiation. And this is really the heart of the story. The hero steps into this totally new world and has to face what Campbell called the road of trials. And it's exactly what it sounds like. A whole series of tests, meeting new friends and new enemies, all of it pushing them way past their limits. And they usually stumble, right? They fail at first. But every single one of those challenges forces them to learn, to adapt, and to grow into the person they're supposed to become. And that brings us to the end, the return. The hero finally crosses back over into their old life. But here's the key. They are not the same person who left. Not even close. They've become what Campbell called a master of two worlds. They can live in their normal, everyday world, but they now carry with them this deep wisdom or power they picked up on their adventure. So you might be thinking, okay, this is some pretty heavy academic stuff. And you'd be right. Campbell's work was definitely not light reading. But this idea, it was way too powerful to stay stuck in a library. It was destined for a much, much bigger stage. In fact, it became one of Hollywood's most powerful and secret weapons. So picture this. It's the 1980s. There's this story analyst at Disney. His name is Christopher Vogler. He reads Campbell's book, and it's like a light bulb just goes off over his head. He takes this super complex 17-stage philosophical model and boils it down into a practical 12-step guide, basically a cheat sheet for screenwriters. And he called it The Writer's Journey. And this little memo, it just exploded. It spread through Hollywood like wildfire. Suddenly, it was the go-to template for building a story, not just at Disney, but everywhere. It literally shaped the stories of so many movies we now think of as classics, like The Lion King and Finding Nemo. And this is what's so brilliant about it. The framework is incredibly flexible. I mean, some of Campbell's original ideas, like the whole woman as temptress thing, where a female character tries to distract the male hero, that feels pretty dated today, right? But modern writers just adapt it. Take Wonder Woman. The Temptress figure is actually a man, Steve Trevor. He tries to get Diana to stop her quest, not out of malice, but out of love and concern for her safety. The archetype gets a modern twist, but that core story moment, it's still there. Okay, so here's the really crucial point. It's easy to look at this and think it's just some kind of paint-by-numbers formula for making hit movies. But it's so much more than that. The reason it works, the reason these stories resonate so deeply with us, is because it's actually a metaphor for, well, for being human. Campbell literally called it a roadmap for life. Because think about your own life. We all get that call to adventure, right? It might be a new job, a big move, a tough relationship, some personal challenge you have to face. And we all have to walk that road of trials where we get tested. And if we make it through, we come back changed, with new skills, new confidence, a new sense of who we are. And this is where Campbell's most famous quote really hits home. "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." The reason these stories get under our skin is because they're not just about dragons and spaceships. They're about our own psychological growth. That thing you're most afraid of facing, that's probably where the biggest reward is waiting. When you boil it all down, every single one of these journeys is really about one thing: death and rebirth. And no, I don't mean a literal death. It's symbolic. It's about the death of your old self, the weaker, more naive you, and the birth of someone new, someone stronger, wiser, and more complete. So you see this ancient pattern? It's not just for wizards in fantasy novels or heroes in action movies. It's an archetypal story that's literally inside all of us. It's a map for our own lives. Which really just leaves one final thought, one big question for you. What's your call to adventure?